Welcome to Cloud Stories, where your host, Heather Smith, interviews some brilliant minds from the Xero ecosystem and beyond. This show shares stories from our community, developers, cloud integrators, end users, Xero solution providers, business consultants, accountants, bookkeepers, and people riding the cloud. Together we gain a 360-degree insight into this evolving phenomenon. We pick up tips, tools, and tactics from stories shared. We understand where the pieces of the puzzles fall into place, and in turn we can propel our business to the next level. Now here's your host, the very curious Miss Heather Smith.
Hello, it's Heather Smith here. Thank you for joining me today. Hope you are doing well. Today I speak with Tejaswi Raghurama, which I've probably pronounced incorrectly, but I refer to him as Tej. Tej is a growth hacker at ZapStitch. ZapStitch is a data integration platform for small businesses to automate data flow across cloud business applications. They are automating accounting for 1,000+ e-commerce businesses from North America, Australasia, Europe, by integrating Shopify, BigCommerce with Xero. ZapStitch automatically imports sales orders into your accounting application as invoices. Discounts, taxes and shipping rates are synced seamlessly, which is something he emphasises in the show. An average business using ZapStitch saves 300+ hours every month spent in manual accounting, freeing up their time so they can spend it with the customer and family. ZapStitch is the #1 ranked and rated accounting add-on in the Shopify App Store. Taj believes no human should do a machine's job, and small businesses can grow huge with automation. He plays his part by educating and working with customers. When not learning from businesses, you'll find him watching South Park. He joined ZapStitch in February 2014 as one of the first employees there. He was inspired by the vision of the founders to fundamentally impact the way businesses manage tedious processes. I started by asking Tej who was his favourite South Park character and why.
Awesome. I mean, that's a great question to start with. So I think Cartman, because I'm fascinated by pragmatic and realistic people. I always look at the world around me that, there is good, there is bad, but there are people who actually recognize it and live through it. So I would see Cartman in South Park as being the most pragmatic, and he is who he is. He doesn't mold himself according to the people around him, and he has his originality intact. So yeah, he is cruel. I don't recognize with that spirit, but I think he's on his own.
Okay. Yeah, so. Sensational. I don't watch South Park, so I don't know the character, but I thought that our listeners might find that interesting.
Yeah.
I know that my son watches South Park, but I don't.
Okay.
So, Tej, can you tell me a little about ZapStitch?
Sure. So ZapStitch automates accounting for e-commerce stores in, plain and simple English. So what we do is we integrate platforms like Shopify, BigCommerce with accounting apps like Xero, right?
Yes.
So ZapStitch enables seamless data syncing between those apps. So we sync data like orders, customers, and anything related to the invoice, and sales tax automation. So what we enable at the end of the day is exponentially faster reporting in accounting and accurate data and peace of mind. I mean, the most common feedback we get from our accountants and from business owners who use ZapStitch is peace of mind. At the end of the day, accounting shouldn't be an intimidating step in the process, right?
Yeah.
So, I mean, that is one feedback we often get. And at a company level, our vision is to automate business apps across verticals. So when we were founded, we are a cloud data integration platform. So our long-term 2-year or 3-year future is to integrate at least 300, 500 business apps on the cloud. We are starting, we are starting with e-commerce and accounting because we believe that these are major gaps in between them, and we want to solve as many problems in accounting as possible and go in depth in accounting automation.
So who are your typical customers?
Yeah, so typical customers are twofold. One is an e-commerce business owner or the business team of a 10-man or a 15-man e-commerce team. And the second end user is the accountant who has multiple e-commerce stores as clients or is working part-time as a bookkeeper. So those are two end users, but our business is somebody who is doing, let's say, a $2 million revenue per year and who actually feels the pain of data entry, right? So a typical business where we work with spends at least 500 hours in accounting per month, right? So if we can solve that pain point, I think that's where our end customer is.
Yeah, so that certainly makes, if you can resolve 500 hours at your price point, then that's certainly of benefit to the client. Exactly. So whereabouts are you actually based?
Yeah, we are based out of Bangalore in India. So it's called the Silicon Valley of India, but so it's the Bangalore, the startup hub in India. Yeah.
So whereabouts are your servers based? So where is sort of the data for your company based, for the client data based?
Yeah, we are based, we build it on AWS. The servers are across US and Singapore, if I'm not wrong. Mm-hmm. But I will need to get some technical knowledge there. But the servers are on AWS and we don't locally store the data.
Okay, so it's not locally stored. Because it's always a question that people ask is...
Yeah, indeed.
It's an unpleasant question, I guess, but it's always... the customers always go, well, where is my data? Is it in the clouds? Where is it? So it's also important to know.
Yeah, yes. Just to add to that point, ZapStitch believes in transparency, so we don't store any local data on any server for that matter, right?
Yes.
So we only move data from A to B.
Yes.
So there will be apps, and I'm sure you have interviewed and talked to some where they store locally and in the app they store the data, right? Mm-hmm. So we enable seamless syncing of data and not storing of data. That's a belief we are in right now. Maybe going forward when we add features like reporting inside the app, we will look at storing data. But right now we are only moving data and storing metadata, right?
Yes, like number absolutely. Of orders. I thought it might be like that. So what's your internet connection like in Bangalore, the Silicon Valley of India?
So internet connection is a problem maybe sporadically, but we have good broadband speeds in Bangalore. So we have a speed of, let's say, I think 20 to 30 Mbps at average. That serves our purpose, and we haven't felt the pain of internet speed at all. But, sometimes the sporadic connection is due to the team load rather than the internet speed. Mm-hmm. So when we grew as a startup, there were logistical issues which were solved, of course. But there is no problem of internet, or we are not aware of, consciously aware of the speed. Yeah.
So, Tej, you describe yourself as a growth hacker. What does that mean?
I mean, that's something I'm figuring out.
Oh, okay.
So
it sounds very impressive. I actually like that title, the growth hacker.
Right. So how growth hacking works is it's a term termed by a content marketer called Sean Ellis, who is in inbound.org, and he has his own startup. So what he says is, like, when you build a startup, right, there is a predictable growth you can achieve. You can draw a straight line, which is not a hockey stick, but is like a 45-degree angle, right? But what a growth hacker does, or a growth marketing does, is like it recognizes certain bursts in the marketing cycle and exponentially reiterates it. So if the growth hacking is successful, you find an unconventional way of growing and you make it repeatable success. So that's how you differentiate your startup from the rest of the competition, and you actually blow the competition off because you have tested and repeated success with an unconventional method. Mm-hmm. So that's what growth hacking is, the term coming from.
Okay, no, that's interesting. So I should mention in there, I'm guessing I'm right, you're referring to grass hockey rather than ice hockey for our North American listeners, which is it's actually...
that's a good analogy,
would he be referring to ice hockey rather than grass hockey?
He's an Australian guy, so I don't know.
Because they're two different, they're two very differently shaped sticks, I know that.
Indeed. I think I get your point now.
Yes. So I think it's actually the ice hockey stick he's referring to, isn't it? Because that's the one with the 45-degree angle, whereas the grass hockey stick's actually quite very, very short.
Wow, I never looked at it like that.
Yeah.
Maybe, that you should add it in.
I'll go and Google it and see if I can work it out afterwards.
Yeah.
So you have, in the first year of launch, you managed to attain 250 paying customers with inbound marketing. How did you go about doing this?
Yeah, so we have an install base of 1,000 stores, but when the free trial ends, that's how the paying customer starts, right? We are a SaaS-based B2B company, product company. So at the beginning, we were very clear that we were targeting certain markets where these platforms have good penetration. For example, US, Canada, and Australia, UK, right?
Yes.
Where the amalgamation or the integration can serve a purpose immediately. So we targeted those and we founded the channels, which were the app stores, right? So as a company, we didn't invest in sales as a team or we didn't hire any salespersons. We only invested in customer success. So when I joined in as in third team member in February of last year, I was straight away sent to customer support as a role. I didn't go to marketing for the first 4 months. Right?
Yes.
So what we learned from that is like, if you actually delight your customers from the day one, they sell the app themselves. They write reviews, they talk about you, they recommend it to users, and the Shopify ecosystem is pretty viral in that sense. People talk about their issues.
Yes.
So we actually focused on two things. One is the community forums across these business apps. And second is to get actually good reviews on the platform, so that people read reviews before they read features, actually, often. So,
I completely agree with that, yes. Okay, so let's examine that a bit further. In terms of the forums you were looking at, what forums were you looking at? Is it a specific Spotify forum?
Yeah, so Shopify and BigCommerce, for example.
I said Spotify, Shopify, yes.
No, they're very similar. Yeah, so Shopify has a very active business forum, which is shopify.com/forums. So even we actually got the business idea thanks to those forums, because customers were talking about specific data, manual data problems, right?
Yes.
Manual accounting problems. So when you go to the forums, there will be these customers who talk about, how do I move my data from Shopify to Xero? How do I, manage accounting? What are the best practices of accounting?
Yes.
So we positioned ZapStitch as a thought leader in those forums, saying we know your pain point and we know how accounting can be a pain sometimes, and how our solution solves it. So rather than outselling, we out-educated our competition in the forum. So that's a philosophy we believe in, is that, if you relate with the pain point. So we talked about how you can move data seamlessly between Shopify and Xero.
Yes.
And, automate the reporting and just focus on business reports rather than actually entering data. So those forums were a great place where people were actually talking about the problems, and we just plugged in ourselves as somebody who knows what they're talking about, and we can solve it. Yeah.
I think going on the forums is very smart, and I think that it also, as well as it being authentic, I think it also probably gives you really good SEO, because people go, I know I personally, I go in there and search there, and I know people who have a high level of credibility, and if they're supporting a particular product, I'll go, okay, I don't need to do extensive research on it because this person has said it's okay, so I'm sure it will be okay.
Right.
And how did you encourage your clients to give you reviews?
Yeah, that's a good question. So many companies, product companies especially, have a way of, irritating the customer in terms of reviews, right? They keep bugging the customer saying, why don't you write a review? Give a link, all those things. So what we did innately or subtly was have a live chat support in our app, right?
Yes.
So when the onboarding happens, and TradeGecko is a great example where the onboarding is seamless, right?
Yes.
But when we started as a company, we didn't have that leverage of a beautiful design and, amazing out-of-the-box design. But we focused on simple and subtle design.
Yes.
And when the onboarding happened, the user got delighted, right?
Yes.
And our automatic chat would plug in that, how did you find the experience? Do you need any help? What was the next setting you want? All those things. So as soon as the engagement happened in the live chat, we started to see that the customer is delighted and we can actually ask for a review.
Yes.
Right? So, it's about instant gratification rather than sending them a mail or calling them and saying, how did you like the app? So the live chat client helped us a lot, and I would recommend it to any product company starting out, because that's a great way to learn from customers on the spot and also solve their problems instantly. And also, of course, write a review if the user is delighted.
Yeah, it sometimes amazes me that some of the companies are not as receptive as actually just to talk to an individual person. They're like, if you're not a partner, I'm not going to talk to you. And you're like going, well, I need to talk to you before I consider becoming a partner. Now, in terms of reviews, it sounds like you're not focused on getting reviews on other sites. So I know that Xero has a add-on marketplace and actually encourages people to review there. So are you directing people to go and review there?
Yeah, so with Xero, we are just launched there, Heather. So we want to get as many reviews there, but it's just 2 to 3 weeks old.
Yes.
And we actually started getting paid customers as well from Xero. So, I mean, review becomes, a natural,
progression in the cycle.
Yeah, byproduct of success, right? So we want to ensure product success with Xero first, and the reviews, I'm sure, will be there, but we are not biased in any platform as such.
Mm-hmm. So for our listeners, we'll just share with them that ZapStitch is now on the US Xero marketplace, but you're also looking for approval on the other country marketplaces. Is that correct?
Yeah. So I should give credit to Xero because they are one of the most active developer support forums out there. They're very transparent in how they deal with partners like us. So they were very clear that unless customers actually say that sales stack automation works with ZapStitch, they will not approve it, right? Mm-hmm. So we have seen other apps which you are aware of where community is like, you like your app, the customers like your app, okay, you're globally approved. So here it's more like every country has a specific use case, and unless you actually meet them practically and customer talks about it, you're not approved. Mm-hmm. So we had beta customers from US and UK. So we got approved, and UK should be very soon right now. And we want beta customers from Australia and New Zealand, which is the most biggest Xero user base, to approve it as soon as possible. And that's our main focus in February.
Yes, sensational. So how many customers does ZapStitch need to be successful?
Yeah, as a B2B company, we are focused on 2 metrics, right? One is MRR, monthly recurring revenue. And second is to reduce churn. So, rather than talking about number of customers, we talk in MRR in at least our philosophy. So we want to get to at least 100,000 MRR by end of year or by next year, early next year. So that's how we are growing, and our month on month, at least to reach that, would be 35. We are around 30 at this moment. So we are going at a good speed, but that's how we look at our growth.
Yes. Excellent.
Yeah.
So you've targeted multiple markets to penetrate the cloud-based software, specifically in e-commerce and accounting. So what have you observed through that, and what have you learned through that targeting of the different markets?
Right. So when we actually launched the beta product in 2013 end, which is like December or November, if I'm not wrong, I was not on board, and the founding team had tested it with Indian customers, right? So the problem with Indian cloud or cloud ecosystem is like they're not very progressive, or they haven't understood the impact a cloud app can bring to their business.
Yes.
So we still are believing in, manual bookkeeping or CD-based software of accounting, Excel sheets. So the penetration was getting harder and harder.
Yes.
So we naturally went to the most progressive marketplace, which is US. They already know the pain points they have, and they do actually look to build a multi-million-dollar business within 1 or 2 years, right? So the e-commerce stores there built on Shopify or BigCommerce were looking at how do I grow faster, and accounting needs to be fast, needs to be painless. So how do I find a solution? Okay, ZapStitch is there. So we got our first paying customers from US, then Canada. So we started progressing in those geographies first, and then UK, and then Australia. So in terms of progressive ecosystems for cloud softwares, we thought, and we have analyzed that US is by far the leader. And
oh, really?
Yeah. in terms of, multiple processes. So they don't look at one process to automate. They actually want to automate the whole business and focus on customer success, focus on sales, marketing, and the data is a burden to them, right?
Yes.
So, they look at multiple apps to automate multiple sides of their business. So Australia was a close second to that. And Canada is very close to Australia.
I would have thought, from speaking to people, I don't have any stats behind me, it would have been New Zealand.
Sure. Yeah, in terms of user base, I'm talking, sorry.
Yeah, so in terms of user base, I completely agree because they've got such a bigger number.
Indeed, I appreciate that because I was talking not in philosophy of approach to the business, but in terms of, I meant that,
The user base number, yeah. As soon as you get the US in there, buying into anything, you expand exponentially, don't you?
Yeah. And I'm sure with Xero, we would test the New Zealand market much better because with Shopify and the other accounting app, we didn't have much user base in New Zealand. So we couldn't, get real data to measure with that. But I'm sure Xero, I have seen the data that Xero is more in Australia and New Zealand already. So that should be good data to work with.
Yes. So how can customer service be a differentiator for startups in a competitive market?
Yeah. So, when you look at cloud-based businesses and, there is no geographical limitation. For example, we are an Indian company, but working seamlessly for US audience, right? We work in their time zones. Our support team works at US and UK time zones. So when you come to a company in a competitive marketplace, you have to find a differentiator. It cannot be a price always. You can't be the cheapest solution out there. That's not a good business model to work with.
Absolutely.
So what you want to do is you want to delight your customers. And if your app is not at the self-serving mode in the initial days, customer success or customer support is the easiest way to get there because, as you said, businesses want to talk to a human at the end of the day. They don't want to just write an email and get a response. They want to talk to a human. They want to relate to their problems. They want to talk about their problems. So our initial days or initial growth has to be credited to seamless customer support and, of course, a great product which enables delight. So I think from our learnings, we can safely say that if you actually put in place tools to automate customer support, to have things like live chat, email automation, and then actually have a product which is centric to the user and not to a developer or, you don't need to be a scientist to use the app. So if you look at those three verticals as customer success, you are already in a good, path to grow early. So that would be our learning in that space.
So what tool do you use for your live chat?
Yeah, we use Olak. We have been a huge fan of Olak.
Olak, okay. What email automation do you use?
So for customer support, we have two things. One is the support which is on Fresh Desk. It is and for customer interactions, we use Intercom. So what Intercom does is it gives you the app usage of every user. Has he run a sync? What type of data did he sync? Is he actually happy with the product? All those customer analytics, we use Intercom and we send trigger emails based on the actions inside the app.
Okay.
So, that's how our customer support cycle works. Onboarding works,
So if you're dealing with people during business hours in the US, it sounds like you're not getting much sleep over there.
No, we don't work maybe 18 hours a day. How we divide is like the marketing and product team works in Indian hours, and the support and the customer success team works in US hours.
Okay.
So, and as we expand into markets, I'm sure the whole team will find a challenge in the maybe 1 or 2 weeks, but we are a global company, so we should act like one.
Yes. Do you have staff outside of India?
No, we are a 15-member team in Bangalore in India.
Yeah, that's really large. That's a really large team. Do you attend any of the Xero roadshows or XeroCon events, the big Xero conferences?
Yeah, we would love to, because there are these industry specific events, but as you mentioned, people like you hang out there, but right now we are not focused on that.
Yes.
We want to, that's one differentiator.
Your support is online rather than showing up at those events. No,
exactly.
People do it different ways.
We don't have a sales team. Yeah.
Sensational. So can you share with us some of the businesses using your solution?
Sure. So one of the most successful businesses who was an early adopter of ZapStitch is Boulder Bands. So they won the Shopify Builder Business competition last year.
Oh, okay.
So do you know about the Builder Business competition?
No, I don't.
Okay, sorry. I'll give a brief. So what they do is Shopify promotes businesses who grow to $1 million business every year. Right?
Oh, and of course they wouldn't they?
Exactly. So it's like a cross-promotional activity.
Yes.
So what the Builder Business does is, like, you need to sell as much as you can in the year one of your business after launching your business. Right? So whoever sells the most in that calendar year becomes the winner. So Boulder Bands is a Shopify store who launched in late 2013, and when they adopted us, we were just 1 month old as ZapStitch.
Wow.
So they had at least 200 orders per day, right?
Yes.
And we were like blown away. Okay, this is a great store. This is a large store. So they also became our product evangelist, and they gave active feedback how to make our product better. And how they function is like they have a very niche segment of customers. They sell headbands for people, gymming and sports personalities.
Oh, okay, yes.
Who like, anything like jogging and hiking and everything. So they sell headbands, and they grew to $1 million. I think they are now $3 or $4, $5 million business within 1.5 years.
Wow, I didn't know headbands had come back and made a comeback.
I mean, talk about it. Yeah. So they were one of the most successful early customers. And then PopChart Lab is one of the most creative businesses we have. So they create charts on any topic. For example, how did Nike evolve their shoes? How did wine evolve from 1800 to 2000? So then varieties of wines.
People then buy the chart from them.
Exactly. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay, that's interesting.
Yeah. So these two were the most earliest and, biggest customers.
Yes.
And there are many, but as customer success, these are the first two that come up to my mind.
Did you find yourself in the developer stage reacting to their needs, so that you had them on board and they said, okay, we need this, and you were able to implement something like that?
Yeah, that's a good question, right? So as a product company building a cloud app, we necessarily don't go by feedback from just customers.
Yes.
So what we go by is data and market need, right? So when we talk to, let's say, 5 or 6 customers and they want sales stack automation, we build sales stack automation.
Yes.
But it's not like building a custom solution for big clients or, working with them over time to see what do they want and, going in depth to their needs. But we want to serve collectively as an ecosystem for Shopify users or, Xero users rather than just a multi-million-dollar business. Yeah.
Yes. So if someone has your product in place, they've got Shopify, they've got Xero, and they've got ZapStitch in place, what additional financial information can they attain through having that integration?
Yeah, good question. So how ZapStitch works is we don't store any local data, right? So we don't generate reports in the app. But what we do, for example, is like say I think this is one of our differentiators, that the sales tax, the other apps don't go to specific sales tax and invoices, right?
Yes.
So what these apps do is they have one sales tax rate and they apply it to all the invoices they sync. So what ZapStitch does is it actually breaks down the taxes as is from the invoice and maps it to the Xero accounts, for those sales taxes. So when that is automated, an accountant or a business owner just needs to go to the sales tax account in Xero and just generate a report within a second. So if you go to the manual side of things or non-automation, it would take at least 5 minutes to do for every invoice. Entering the sales tax, mapping it to the right account and everything. So maybe 1 or 2 minutes is saved on every order.
Yes.
So if you look at a growing business like, let's say, Boulder Bands, they get 300 orders per day. That would take 6,000 minutes, right?
Yeah.
So, if you click a button, or we can automate the data sync in ZapStitch, so they don't even have to log in sometimes, right?
Yeah.
So that happens seamlessly, and the accountant just focuses on generating reports and accurate data and non-duplicated data. Yeah.
Excellent. So tell me what the startup scene is like in Bangalore.
Yeah, Bangalore is a hub of startups in India. It's maybe the most populous city in India in terms of startups. And our national capital, New Delhi, is a close second, if I'm not wrong.
Yes.
So how Bangalore works is a lot of product companies exist here. So product companies need investment early on, right?
Yes.
So there's a huge VC and angel investors community here. There is ecosystems like incubators and accelerators. So we are still learning in the entrepreneurial ecosystem globally, but in India, at least, Bangalore is very progressive for startups, and there are lesser challenges, I would say. I put it like that.
Are the venture capitalists coming from India, or are they coming from overseas?
Yeah, so the venture capital firm is mostly Indian who invest in Indian startups, but they have global investors who are in contact with them, and they actually scout talent. But they don't actually actively invest in Indian startups as directly, as an early investor. But if a huge Indian venture capital has invested, then they see the talent, they scout it, and the foreign investors come in.
Yes. So I think you've told me this, but I've forgotten. How old is your company?
Yeah, we launched our product in February of 2014.
Okay.
And we launched our company in December or November, if I'm not wrong.
So you're coming up for your 1 year anniversary.
Yeah, my own and companies as well, yeah.
Yeah, that's amazing growth for a company that's been around for a year. So what have you learnt in that time of, growing the startup in India?
Yeah. I mean, one of the central things is like, if you want to build a fast growing or any growing startup which doesn't die in the first year, is like you need to focus on customers.
Yes.
I mean, most of one skewed notion many startups have is that they want to build the perfect product, right? So what we had learned very early on, thankfully, is that if you actually build a minimum viable product for the, let's say, in our market, actually the customer will do the rest of the thing. They will give you requirements. The market will drive your product rather than you building the perfect solution. So if you focus on customer success and actually giving a damn about them, basically, they actually give you back and more than actually you ask for. So in terms of advocacy of the product, advocacy of your customer success, giving active feedback in terms of their product needs. So I think that is one major learning. And second challenge in learning is the marketing side of things. You want to build a repeatable engine of bringing customers, bringing progressive e-commerce businesses who want to try automation, who want to solve this problem. So that has been one major challenge. Where do these guys hang out? Where do these guys talk about their problems? So building an inbound channel of customers is a challenge, and we are still figuring it out. But I think if we do our things right, it's just another startup challenge we'll solve.
Yeah, it's certainly interesting.
Yeah.
But I totally agree with you in what you're saying in the focus on the customer, and it does seem to be what a lot of people are saying these days is focus on the customer. And I know sometimes I'm speaking with people and like I'm going into the startup places and I'm like,
sure.
Have you sold this? Is anyone using this? No. I can't show it to them until it's perfect. And it's like, that looks like you're putting a lot of money in that. Yeah. It's
also one thing is like, no assumptions is we don't assume that your customer is happy. You need data, you need customer interviews, you need everything to consolidate and, actually generate actionable data rather than assuming that, customers are happy or, they like this feature.
Yeah.
So tools are important to measure everything actually, inside the app.
Can you explain what some of those tools are that you're using?
Sure. For example, a classic case is Intercom. Intercom helps us analyze the product functionality. What is the customer actually doing inside the app, right? So, for example, let's say our early customers came into the app they set up the sync settings, but they never ran the sync.
Yes.
Okay. So if we see that the data shows that there is a time of login, there is a time of sync, and if the time between those two events is, let's say, 15 minutes, we are on the wrong side of things. Right?
Yes.
We want it to be less than 3 minutes or 4 minutes.
Yes.
He sets up the accounts and runs the sync. So we give, the product team looks at the data and wants to change the design, and then the design team comes along and says, okay, this is the button which is not, very inherently
intuitive
out there. Yeah. So let's make it intuitive. Let's iterate on the design and make the onboarding time less than 3 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
So
that's
that
really
challenge,
really smart.
Yeah. Also, one thing it allows you to do, any such tool like Intercom, is like trigger emails or contact touch points with with events inside the app. For example, let's say you have an error in the app, right?
Mm-hmm.
So a chat will automatically come in saying, okay, I saw that you have an error in the app. How can I solve it? And I am your customer success manager,
Yes.
So rather than relying on the customer getting back to you, you have to be proactive in customer support. So these apps let you do that because they can trigger events based on customer actions.
Do the customers freak out that they think Big Brother is now watching them? So, I've made a mistake, and then you've sent me an email telling me I've made a mistake. Do they freak out about that?
No, I mean, it's completely contrary. So the most successful of our customers actually understand that we are thinking for them, right?
Yes.
Because when you deal with data integration, right?
Yes.
It's sensitive data. If something goes wrong, you have to fix it immediately. So they are happy to let us fix it immediately rather than, worrying about transparency or, how did they know about it?
Yeah.
Right. So our customers are actually surprised in a pleasant way that as soon as they get an error, they are figuring things out and we are right there with the solution. So
And are you able to actually jump in to actual individual accounts and sort things out if necessary?
No. So we don't log into any accounts. What we do is we look at the metadata, right? For example, let's say in a corner case, order didn't sync. So our development team looks at the metadata and sees, okay, this is the date the order came from. This is the shop the order came from. So let's rerun that sync. So that's all we do from the back end.
Sensational. No, that's really interesting. I think people will find that really interesting to listen to. I completely agree that it's good to have the automated identifying of errors. I just know that some people are like, oh my goodness, they're in my data, and they're freaking out. So it's good to have that conversation and be open with them. But like I say to a lot of my clients, I just say as part of the sign up, I'm letting the company automatically access your data. But it's not accessing your data, it's accessing, if there's a problem, it will get sorted out a lot quicker than if we have to actually go through that manual process of getting it out there.
Yeah, but a more ideal case would be like, an error is a very corner case, right?
Yes.
So an ideal case is, for example, let's say you are selling in multi-channels.
Yes.
Okay. So you have multiple sales taxes across different regions.
Yes.
So you don't know which setting to have in the app, right? So what you want to do is like you are figuring out settings and you can ask the live chat support saying, okay, how do I solve this business problem with integration? So that's the automation we have built in rather than, just error resolution, because that's very corner case. So the support is more proactive in business cases, how to integrate for your business rather than just broadly integrate two apps. Yeah.
Sensational. So what does the future hold for ZapStitch?
Yeah. So we were born as a data integration platform.
Yes.
Our vision is to build a cloud data integration platform across business verticals. For example, the next logical would be CRM or, marketplace automation. For example, Amazon and eBay, right? So we want to logically progress through the verticals and integrate the most progressive apps and the most popular apps in those verticals. So in a 2-year, 3-year timeline, we see integrating 200, 300 business apps across email marketing, CRM, accounting, e-commerce.
Yeah. So it'd be interesting to see, because I know that some of them, like I know I've worked with Amazon, and it kind of works in an interesting way in that 10 of the transactions are normal and then one kind of like is a summary transaction and it never comes across properly, and you're like going, and the client sets it up themselves perhaps, and then they come to you and you're like, well, 90% of it looks fine, and then 10% of it looks like it's going to take me hours to fix up.
Exactly. So, you're coming into the exact problem which ZapStitch is solving is the reconciling of data, right? When you have different types of invoices, reconciling becomes a pain.
Yes.
So what ZapStitch wants to do with Xero is become one of the very few solution providers which actually enables faster reconciliation.
Yes.
And not just data automation. So when we talked to one of our biggest customers, he had an Amazon store as well.
Yes.
So this was the first point that he brought out, that bring a support for summary invoice when you build the integration, because that is one of the major use cases in Amazon. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it does. It's as soon as you have something in place that makes it easy to sell, it means you can sell so much more.
Exactly.
Because
in self-service,
I, like when I was dealing with this client, I was just like, just stop selling stuff because this is a nightmare. And it was just like creating this bigger and bigger and bigger mess. So it's definitely installing a solution that simplifies the accounting process means you have the capacity to sell more, which is exciting for the business.
Yeah. So. And, one of our, I forgot the name of the customer, 1 second. This guy sells iPhone batteries. So most of the successful businesses we have are niche businesses.
Yes. Yes.
iPhone batteries, headbands, wine collections.
But that's the joy of the internet, is it? That someone can go out and go, I think headbands should be brought back into fashion.
Yeah.
And I'm going to sell them.
So this guy told us that, his accounting team is spending money on watching Netflix movies more than accounting. So he was very happy that we solved this problem, but he was pleasantly not happy that, his accounting team is, now having a lot of fun, which is good, but,
so they're under capacity now.
Yeah. So he was saying, I don't want to fire people, but this is how our team is like, they're having fun. I'm spending more time with my family. Yeah. So I think the data is just a part of the business and it shouldn't become the business. So when you actually integrate well, your customer should do what he likes doing, selling, customer success, or spending time with the family.
I think this is part of the integration process when it goes in. And I'm not sure do you have cloud integrators come in and assist with the integration process, or are you doing that yourself?
Yeah, so we have partnered with the Shopify and Xero, right? So their APIs allow us to pull in and integrate any data we want for our customers. There are limitations, of course. There are API limitations in terms of business use cases. But
would a consultant like me come in and do the integration? Or would a consultant like me come in and watch you do the integration and just sort of sit in the background?
Yeah, that's a good point, actually. So as a strategy of building the right product, we want to onboard experts and consultants. But when you actually run the sync or use the app, it's like a click of a button, right?
Yes.
But in the back end, when we build features, for example, the summary invoice, right?
Yes.
We can't know about the requirement unless I talk to somebody like you.
Yes.
So we bring experts when building the product, but not when using the product, or, the using is like, click a button
and
the
they
data
should,
moves.
And they should be able to do it on their own. Fair enough.
Yeah.
Okay. Oh, thank you very much for speaking with me today, Tej. I really appreciate it.
My pleasure.
And I'm sure our listeners have gained a lot from hearing you talk, especially if they have a Shopify client or are considering a Shopify client as something they'll definitely look at. Now, I need to ask you before you go, see whether you know, what are the birds making all the noise in the background? Do you know what bird types they are?
No, actually not. Oh. My mom is a bird enthusiast, but I'm not. Maybe.
No, they sound like seagulls, but I didn't want to be that bland and suggest that they would be seagulls. Are you near the water?
No. So how Bangalore works is it's a bustling city.
Yeah, okay, so it's not going to be seagulls. Oh, you can send me an email sometime and let me know what the birds are. So it's normally when I have these sessions, my birds are noisier than anyone else's birds. But
I think I heard in one podcast,
Yeah, my birds stayed quiet today and your birds went off. off on a racket. So thank you so very much for speaking with me today, and I'll leave links for how to get in contact with you in the show notes. Yeah. I really appreciate it.
My pleasure, Heather. If I'm not pronouncing it correct, right? Heather?
Heather.
Yeah, great. I mean, you are an inspiration. I wanted you to know that, because when you maybe record and publish the podcast, very few people actually talk to you about it, right? I mean, physically. So I wanted to thank you that you are an inspiration to all of us. And our team actually looks up to experts like you, your stories, and the podcast is an inspiration, so I wanted to make that very clear. Thanks a lot for taking the time out. Yeah.
No, thank you very much, and hopefully it gives you an opportunity to hear the other add-ons and perhaps connect with them and learn from them and sort of move you from cold to warm with these guys, because we're all in it together.
Thanks a lot, Heather. Yeah.
Thank you. Cheers.
I hope the seagulls were not too noisy.
Oh, no. I like birds. They weren't too noisy. I just wondered if you knew what they were.
No, I'm sorry.
You'll have to ask your mum.
I'll get that info. Yeah, thanks a lot, Heather.
Thank you.
Have a good day.
Same to you. Cheers, Tej.
Yeah.
This show is sponsored by Rental SaaS. Rental SaaS is your end-to-end rental management solution, enabling you to keep track of bookings, hired items, and manage your inventory. Rental SaaS integrates seamlessly with Xero. Contact Siva and his team at rentalsaas.com for further information. If you want to get in contact with Heather Smith, please visit her website at www.heathersmithsmallbusiness.com. If you wish to find out more about XU magazines, contact Heather at au@xumagazine.com. You've been listening to Cloud Stories. If you like this podcast, please download it, share it with friends, share it on LinkedIn, Facebook, Twitter, and social media. And one more thing, can you leave Cloud Stories a 5-star rating on iTunes? Thank you.